Most of us are improvising or learning to improvise backwards. Most people improvise within the confines of the bar lines, only playing off the chord within the space the bar lines create. It might sound something like this. Like as if you're only allowed to play the sound of that chord between here and here. Like there's a mental barrier in place. You shall not pass! When you're not reading music, there are no bar lines. It's just a visual aid for our eyes so we can see the organization of written music, the grouping of beats as well as patterns. That way we can read music easier. And that's all bar lines are there for. I have a theory. It's just a theory, mind you. When people learn to improvise while looking at sheet music, which is 98% of us probably, you kind of develop this shall not pass mentality without even realizing it. Now, I don't have any proof, it's just a theory, but it's likely the case. So my argument is, you need to play backwards in order to sound forwards, because if you play it forward, it will sound backwards. Confusing? Well, let me take you down this sort of Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole so I can get you to see it, or shall I say, hear it. Instead of thinking chord, then play a line, we should be playing a line into a chord. Try to go for varying degrees of overlap. It's like what you as the soloist is playing being shifted over from where the band is playing. You'll get more interesting sounds if you leave the confines of the imaginary bar lines. Something like this. Notice that the next chord is being played before the chord arrives. It's like you're hinting at the chord that's coming next. It's a big part of the jazz language. That means that improvising backwards propels the music forward. In music, this is often referred to as forward motion. Two big factors cause the sensation of forward motion in music. One is by hearing the chord slightly before the chord happens. This is done by choosing to play notes of a chord early. The second factor is this tease into the future, foreshadowing as it were. It tugs on our ear, giving us a feeling. What's that feeling, you say? The anticipation of what's coming next. You might not realize it, but our brains, even non-musician brains, make super fast decisions unconsciously. Even just a few notes can clue our brains into what's coming next. So this teaser of sorts is satisfied when the chord lands as it should with the notes that are now aligned with the chord. Everything is right in the world, and one is left with the feeling of being satisfied. Something like watching a movie. There is often some foreshadowing of something that's going to happen. Then some kind of a dilemma occurs that needs to be resolved. It's what keeps us on the edge of our seats. Think of these little phrases you play as mini movie scenes of tension and release. tension is the friction being caused by the upcoming chord being played over the current chord. Our ear hears that tension. Then that tension is immediately resolved by having the chord and the line sync up. That tension is now resolved. It's like being slightly out of phase, then in phase. Out of phase, then in phase, over and over. It's akin to giving the listener little tiny dopamine hits over and over because there's a constant, reoccurring friction and reward that takes place in our brains. To a large degree, this is a part of what makes music interesting, keeping listeners wanting to hear what's going to happen next. If you want to keep the listener mesmerized, learn how to put forward motion into your music. There are many other techniques to draw the listener in with your jazz lines. In this video, I go way deep on a ton of different ways that you can develop yourself as an improvising jazz musician and learn how to play into the chords rather than playing less interesting ideas during the chords. I'll see you over there.